What's up guys, Cali Sunset Gaming with you again, and today I'm going to be showing you how to adjust the sliders on your FIFA 20 career mode. Not only that, but I'm going to be showing you exactly what each slider does and make sure that I give you guys an inside look on how I have my slider settings for the most competitive FIFA 20 experience. Let's get to it. So before we get started, I'll tell you guys that since I started my FIFA 20 career mode on the channel, I've been using the ultimate difficulty. Around episode 3, the ultimate difficulty update came out, in which every single player on the opposition was buffed to 99 stats overall. I'll make sure that I drop a link in the description below for episode 3, which is my first experience of playing against teams on the ultimate difficulty update, and as you can probably guess, it was an absolute travesty. I never want to relive that again. So I thought I'll do this video, show you guys the slider settings that I'm using, as well as give you guys an in-depth look on what the slider settings do, because that's the most important thing. That way you guys are going to have the information to go adjust your own slider settings. If you want to match mine, that's amazing, but if you don't and you want to do your own, at least you're going to have the information and know exactly what to do. So I'm on my career mode menu. What I will do is first go into the settings, which can be found on the far right panel. Now, I know what you're going to say. Stephen, you've got it on legendary. I know. Hear me out. Ultimate difficulty is every single player statted at 99. You're not going to get an even experience when you're playing on your career mode, and you're going to get trounced by teams that you shouldn't be getting beaten by. Not saying that you'll never get defeated by a lower league side or a team that's not as good as you on legendary, but the ebb and flow of the season is going to be a lot more even in comparison to when you play on the ultimate difficulty. You fall asleep for like 5 seconds and that's it, it's game over. So the idea here is to use legendary difficulty and basically buff it up, and that way you can still go against teams that are slightly lower rated than you, still have a competitive experience, but also when you're playing against big teams like Manchester City, Manchester United, Arsenal. Are Arsenal a big team anymore? That was a joke. That was a joke. Don't dislike the video for that, please. You still get a competitive experience out of those guys as well, and you're going to have to try really hard to get the win, which is obviously what you want. It's much more satisfying beating a team when you know you've worked really hard and it's more even across the field, rather than perspirating constantly, trying your best to win on ultimate difficulty, only to win 2-0 against Manchester City, but then lose 7-0 against Bournemouth. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but come on, let's get real. What I'll do is I'll give you a rundown of what each slider setting does as I'm explaining the user gameplay customization, and then I'll do the exact same for the computer gameplay customization as well. These are my slider settings, so I'm not saying these are the best ones, but like I said, I'll show you mine. If you want to copy mine and then use them, see how you get on with them, definitely drop a comment in the comment section below. Just let me know how you got on, or if you had to adjust them even further, your comment might help somebody else be able to achieve the competitive experience that they want on their FIFA 20 career mode. So the sprint speed is how fast the players run. We've kept that at 50, which is the preset as how it starts on FIFA 20. The acceleration is the same. Obviously, the faster players are going to accelerate faster, but there's no sort of buff or nerf, positive or negative. We just keep that as the preset. For shot error, we've raised that to 58. Now, shot error is obviously whenever you take a shot, there's going to be influence on things like the trajectory, bounce of the ball, how far away the goal is, the player that you're controlling. This basically just slides the stats slightly against you. From here, you're going to have to concentrate a lot more to ensure that the shots that you take are suitable ones, and that you're not just sort of hitting the goal and hoping, even though every so often that might still work. The pass error, we've put that to 58 as well. Now, pass error is basically any pass that you make, there's an element of error that can be included into it. Essentially, this just nerfs it. You just got to be a lot more on top of how you pass. Make sure that the body framing of the player that you're controlling is correct. He's not trying to pull off a back heel pass that's 30 meters away and he's never going to make. Things like that make you concentrate a lot more, make sure that you're much more solid in defence and midfield, and that every pass that you make has purpose. Shot speed, we've dropped that down to 49 ever so slightly, just to give the computer's goalkeepers a bit more of an edge, just because as you know, if you've been playing FIFA 20, the keepers on Legendary difficulty are atrocious. There's no other way to describe it. They're just terrible. Even on Ultimate difficulty, they're not that much better. So, shot speed down to 49. This is how fast the ball is going to be travelling from any taken shot. Just nerfs it against you slightly, and then as a result, you're going to have to concentrate a lot more. Make sure that those shots that you're pulling off are true, tried, tested. Like me with Tammy Abraham. Well, actually, if you've watched my career mode, then you'll realise that I'm not as good as I'm making out, so I'll probably edit that bit out. Pass speed, the same, drop that down to 49. That's basically how fast the ball is going to be travelling in a pass. You just have to, again, concentrate a lot more. With the error being slid up as well, you just need to make sure that every single pass you make has purpose. You do it deliberately and not try and do it just to vaguely get round the defender. I bumped the injury frequency up. Now, I've done this for my career mode just to make it a bit interesting, sort of force me to make rotations that I may not necessarily make. That being said, even though it's bumped up to 80, you don't really see that many injuries that take place. But when they do, obviously, like I said, you're going to have to rotate the squad. Injury frequency basically dictates how many injuries take place in your squad throughout your career mode. Injury severity is basically how severe the injury is. What I've done is I've dropped this slider down to 30 just because I've got the injury frequency so high. So in real life, players are often going out with knocks that they're pulled up in training. Now, if you want players to be out for a long time, then whack that baby up. But I think injury frequency at 80 and injury severity at 30 is a really good mix that every so often just sort of throws a curveball at you, so you have to make adjustments to your team. Goalkeeper ability, I put that down to 49 just because you want it to be a competitive experience and you don't want to always rely on your keeper. First thing that most players will do when they start a career mode is just get an incredible keeper. That's fine, that'll still work, but you're just nerfed ever so slightly in terms of the slider being down by 1. So as a result, you've just got to concentrate more and defend better. Marking for the user is basically how tightly the defenders will mark during things like set pieces or open play. This just puts a lot more emphasis on you being able to read the game, who needs to be marked, who doesn't need to be marked, and it takes the hands out of the computer to sort of do it for you. Like I said, just creating that more interesting, immersive experience where you're constantly looking about the pitch, seeing who's marking the opposition well, who's marking man for man, and who isn't capable of marking the person that have been assigned. Run frequency, I've got that down slightly lower, so this just puts more emphasis on you making those manual runs, making the players aware that they've got to make the runs by triggering it on your controller. Obviously, we've only knocked it down by 1. It just means that the runs aren't going to be made as commonly, or they're not going to be picked up as fast, but they will still be made. So if you're not doing it manually, eventually they will still be made, but all in all, it's just emphasis on you being able to do it all yourself. For the positioning, line height, line length, and line width, what we've done is we've slightly adjusted those. So line height basically dictates how high a defensive line is going to sit. Slightly higher, so you have to be aware of counter-attacks breaking on you. Makes it really interesting in terms of the defenders that you have. The older defenders are slightly slower, so you have to make sure that you read it quicker if you're unable to get young, fast defenders in your squad. So line length dictates how sort of stretched out it's going to be over a distance going forward. So that basically accommodates for counter-attacks being pulled against you. So I've only nerfed it by 1, but essentially it just means that you're going to have to be a lot more intuitive in terms of when counter-attacks are starting to break to make sure as many defenders are as back as possible. Obviously, if you're having difficulty with this, it's best to keep it at 50 and then adjust it ever so slightly left or right, depending on if you want it more compact or you want it more stretched out going up the pitch. Line width, that's basically how wide or compact the team is. If you have it wide, then you may be open to more attacks going through the middle, whereas if you have it compact, even though you'll be safe in the middle, the opposition's going to utilize wing play against you. So fullback positioning is not necessarily just about where the fullback is going to be placed. What it does is it actually dictates how far forward or how far back they're going to sit when certain attacks take place. So what I've done is I've dropped mine down to 10. So essentially what it means is that the fullbacks won't actually make as many forward runs as they usually would if it was set at 50. And as a result, you have to make use of the players that are attacking and the defenders staying back, so you can't actually utilize them on the wings as you would usually expect to. Obviously, you can adjust this as and when, but what I've done is I've set mine at 10. That way, I've got to concentrate more on the players that I have forward. in a sense, it sort of helps because I've still got my 4 at the back just in case a counter-attack does occur. But it has left me stranded on a few episodes just because I haven't got all those options that I would usually expect. And as a result, it just means that I have to concentrate a lot more. So for the power bar, what I've done is I've left this at 50. This basically just modifies how fast or slow the power bar speeds up for something like a pass or for something like a shot. This is purely just down to your own preference. This isn't going to have massive influence on the way that the game's played or the way that the computer plays the game. Basically, if you hold down X longer, the pass will be stronger. But if you've got the power bar modified so it takes longer to fill up, obviously you're going to have to hold it down for longer. Or if you've got it modified so that you don't have to hold it for as long, you just have to be a lot more precise with your passes. Basically, I just leave this at 50 just because used to the way that the game's played in that sense, you've got used to how to sort of power the bar up. So I'd just leave that at 50, but obviously if you want to make changes, fill your boots. Fill your boots. First touch control error. This is a killer, man. This one is an absolute killer. So what I've done is I have nerfed it by 3. So essentially the first touch control error, if you lower it, it means that there's going to be less error, but if you raise it, there's going to be more error. That's probably the only difficult thing with this, is that obviously if you don't read it correctly, you could be sliding them all up to 100, but some of them are going to actually have major negative effects. You just need to make sure that you're reading it carefully to ensure that you know whether bumping it up is going to be positive or negative. So I've got mine at 53. This basically just means that whenever a pass is fizzed into you, that you need to make sure that the player that's controlling it has got time and he's got the ability to control the ball. It makes it a lot more difficult when you're playing with a lower league side. Ball's fizzed in, you try and take control of it and the ball just pings off and you've got to go chasing after it. This just makes it an experience where you've got to concentrate a lot more. Like with a lot of the other buffers, you just need to make sure that you're concentrating. Every pass that is made, as I said before, made with purpose, and you're fully aware of who the pass is going to, and you know whether to start making the run or first collect the ball and then start moving. So now we're on to the computer gameplay customization. Sprint speed is at 50. We've left that at 50, but we've bumped the acceleration up to 55. The reason that I bumped this up to 55 is with a lot of the other buffers that I put on the player customization, it just puts more emphasis on defending more tactically. You can't bomb every player forward because a lot of players are going to be able to beat you on the break, especially when you're playing against teams that have fast wingers or a very pacey striker. I've got the shot error down at 35. Usually this would start at 50. I've dropped it down to 35 just because on the legendary difficulty, a lot of the shot seems to go off target from the opposition. So what I've done here, dropped it down to 35, implied a further emphasis on making sure that your defending is tip top, because if you guys fail with the defending on this, then chances are it will result in you conceding a goal, which in real life is basically the tail of the tape. If a defensive mistake is made, usually, especially in this day and age and how the Premier League is now, how fast it moves, it's all she wrote. Pass error down to 40, so the passes are going to be a lot more clinical from the opposition. Obviously, we've already nerfed it in terms of how well the computer will sort of automatically do the marking for you. So you have to make sure that you're constantly aware and you're taking advantage of all those well-trained defenders that you have marking the difficult players. Shot speed and pass speed, obviously just how fast the ball's being moved. That's bumped up to 52 for each. They're going to be making passes and they're going to be fizzing passes across the floor. You just need to make sure that you're on it constantly and that your defending is top echelon so that they don't break it down too easily. Injury frequency up to 70, not as high as it is for the player. Every so often it sort of throws in a curveball in terms of you play against a team that you think are absolutely going to tear you and they may not even have their main striker because he's injured. Injury severity down to 30 just to match the player customization, so it makes it a little bit more even. Goalkeeper ability has been bumped up to 60 just because the keepers aren't that great on this difficulty. For the marking, I've got that at 50 for the opposition, just how tightly they're going to mark you. I've got the run frequency down at 25 for the opposition, just to give you that little bit of opportunity with defending. It's difficult with the opposition because it's so varied in terms of my experience with Ultimate Team moving on to Legendary. It took me a lot of time to find the run frequency that sort of perfected what I would sort of expect to see from a lot of teams, and 25 seems to be that even ground that you'd expect. Obviously, if you're playing against teams and you notice that they're not really making any runs to get in behind, then bump it up. But I guarantee you put that at 25, you're still going to be having a difficult experience, and the teams that can catch you on the counter attack will still do so. Line height set at 50, same with the line length and the line width. So that fullback positioning, a little bit stronger than what the players is, so you're going to notice that the fullbacks are making those runs a lot more, and as a result you're going to need to accommodate for it. This is going to help you in a sense because your fullbacks are already going to be back, but it's just going to put more emphasis on defending. First touch control error for the computer is down at 35, so they're not going to be making any mistakes. You need to make sure that the marking is tight and that any passes that are made, you want to be intercepting them before they go to the player's feet, just because the chances are, unless you're applying pressure to him, he's not going to lose that ball and he's going to gather it quickly and then obviously look to move on straight away. I appreciate you guys checking this video out. Let me know in the comment section below how you get on with this, and also let me know if the information that I gave on each of these customization settings and the sliders helped you be able to sort of modify your game to get the best experience. If you did enjoy this content, do not forget to hit the subscription button as well as that notification bell so you get an update every time I release a brand new video. You can check out my FIFA 20 Chelsea career mode by clicking the link in the description below, or if you subscribe to it, go onto my channel and then scroll through. There's a playlist with all of my FIFA 20 videos. Starting from episode 3, that's when I moved into the ultimate difficulty, and the most recent episode that I've released is the video with these slider settings that I've spent so long trying to master. Hopefully this has helped you to modify your game so it's still as interesting as possible, because I know at this time of year this is when FIFA starts to fade. Thank you guys for checking the video out, and I will see you next time on Cali Sunset Game.